You're a good audience, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
And here to remember Elvis with us on the 10th anniversary of the King's death is the Broadway star of Hair, singer, actor, producer, director, and native Montrealer, Alan Nichols.
Good evening. Most of us remember where we were, what we were doing 10 years ago today, when the numbing news flashed around the world, Elvis Presley, the King, was dead. Within an hour, fans were gathered outside of his home. TV stations scrambled to air specials. Radio stations spun all the records turned to gold by the King's touch. Today, a decade later, the ovation continues. With pictures and film and a lot of music, we'll tell the story of Elvis, how a boy born into nothing came to be king, how he changed music forever, how his work changed him. We'll show Elvis's most electrifying performances. CFCF personality Brian Britt will take us on an exclusive tour throughout Graceland, the mansion Elvis bought for his mother with his first musical fortunes. We will see Graceland as few people ever have on TV. We'll relive Elvis's 1968 comeback. His concert, One Night with You, will be shown unedited, and will bring you Hollywood's version of Elvis's life, a movie simply named Elvis. And we'll hear from people who knew Elvis the best.
And it was a beautiful Cadillac sitting on the showroom floor. And Elvis walked over and he handed me the keys and he said, "Merry Christmas."
I'm no different than anyone else. I was and am a big Elvis Presley fan.
He was doing that to show off for the ladies, but really this was just Elvis. That's the feeling that he had. He loved to do it.
I don't think there's ever been an artist that when his name went on the marquee, or they knew he was coming, people came from all over the world. I never heard of that.
This man had reached the peak of the mountain, and the peak of a mountain can be a lonely place.
Well, the image is one thing, and a human being is another, you know. So.
How close does it come? How close does the image come to the man?
It's very hard to live up to an image.
We'll be back after this.
To the people who add a little more color to all our lives. To the many who get a kick out of working weekends. And to those who reach out and touch all of us with their talent, Labatt 50 says, bravo!
You never find a better kind of people. 50's the one.
To all who deserve and demand the best taste in beer, cheers!
You never find a better beer. 50.
After Elvis cut his first single, the man who owned the studio knew something big was about to happen to music. Sam Phillips of Sun Records in Memphis, Tennessee said, "It excited the dickens out of me. Here was a white man singing a black man's song." Elvis grew up in Mississippi. The man who would shape the sound of rock and roll had been touched all his life by the sounds of the South, blues, and country. Brian Britt helps us trace those roots.
I think it's fantastic. You see, country music was always a part of the influence on my type of music anyway. It's a combination of country music and gospel and rhythm and blues all combined is what it really was. As a child, I was influenced by all of that. Of course, the Grand Ole Opry was the first thing I ever heard, probably. But I liked blues and I liked the gospel music.
Hello, baby, I had to call you on the phone.
Elvis's musical inspiration came from the sounds he heard on the radio and at country fairs growing up in the American South. The place where the old hymns, reels, and folk ballads were born.
Makes me holler. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Ooh.
Influenced by these musical standards and traditions, when Elvis sang and played guitar, he did something different to the music's tempo and feeling.
Hold it, fella. That don't move me. Let's get real gone for a change. Well, I woke up this morning.
It wasn't quite like anything anyone had heard before. Elvis's feverish delivery of yelps and quick phrasings, slapping bass lines, and prominent echo effect on the recordings. Elvis's version of Milk Cow Boogie was new music, sounding more black than white, more rock than country. This music is the original recording cut 34 years ago. Brian Britt.
In 1953, Elvis came here to Sun Records in Memphis to record something strictly for his own amusement. But eventually, that music was heard by Sam Phillips, at the time the owner of Sun Records. He was so impressed by this combination of rhythm and blues, gospel, and country that he signed Elvis to a professional recording contract. The first release on Sun Records was That's All Right, Mama, and we're told it was recorded right here in this corner of the studio. Today, the small two-room facility is a tourist attraction, drawing thousands of Elvis fans monthly. On display is an original microphone, musical instruments, pictures, and other memorabilia from that era. It was also here that the so-called $1 Million Quartet of Jerry Lee Lewis, Carl Perkins, Johnny Cash, and Presley himself recorded a jam session of mostly gospel music one December night in 1956. But when Elvis first came to Sun Records, it was much different. Guitarist Scotty Moore recalls how they came up with the sound that changed the course of popular music.
We went through two or three different songs, more or less taking a break, having coffee, Coke. Elvis started clowning around. Just picked up his guitar and started singing That's All Right, Mama, and clowning around the studio, dancing, just cutting up in general. Bill picked up his bass, started slapping and clowning also. And when I joined in, Sam was in the control room, the door was open. He came out and said, "What are y'all doing?" I said, "That sounds pretty good." I said, we don't know. He said, "Well, see if you can do it again the same way. Let's put it on tape, see what it sounds like." I said, "Sound pretty good through the door." So we kind of looked around at each other and said, "Well, what was we doing?" We didn't know what we had. We knew it was different. We backtracked and tried to do it again. I think we did it twice more. We did once for Sam to get a balance, then we put it on tape. And that was it.
Elvis felt a real sincere desire to be honest in his music, have a little fun with it. Elvis wasn't always serious. You know better than that, George. But when you took that little quick facade off, it was unbelievable when that spiritual quality of Elvis came out.
Elvis didn't invent rock and roll, but he forged it and focused it, developing his unique abilities while playing local auditoriums, nightclubs, and flatbed truck gigs in parking lots, usually as the undercard to the more established country acts of the day. His records on the Sun label took him on a promotional tour of the southern states.
That's all right, Mama. That's all right with you. That's all right, Mama. Just any way it's doing, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right, Mama. And the way it's doing. Oh, now my mama, she done told me. Papa done told me too. Son, that gal you foolin' the way she ain't no good for you, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right now, Mama. And the way it's doing. Wait a minute.
First time that I appeared on stage, it scared me to death. I really didn't know what the yelling was about. I didn't realize that my body was moving. It was a natural thing to me. So the manager backstage, I said, what I do? He said, well, whatever it is, go back and do it again.
I said, I'm leaving town, baby. I'm leaving town to show. Right, and then you won't be bothered with me hanging around your door, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right now, Mama. And the way your loving. I'm out of breath. That's all right now, mama. And the way you wanna do.
Elvis's first big break came when he performed at the Grand Ole Opry, the summit of aspirations for any true country and western singer. The Opry radio show had thousands of listeners, mostly southern rural folk, who liked their country music neat and clean, no messing around with anything flashy. Presley played one song as planned, and afterwards was told he'd never make it as a singer, to go back to his day job driving trucks in Memphis. Elvis was devastated.
I've been traveling over miles, even through the valleys too. I've been traveling night and day. I've been running all the way, baby, trying to get to you.
Elvis's vocal styling sounded black to white audiences of the day, but he really wasn't copying anyone else. When he told Sam Phillips he didn't sound like nobody, he told the truth. He took his musical and emotional strengths of the Delta blues and made it his own, altering words, tightening verses, and cutting the original version of laments and twangs to shreds. He had the subtleties of cool down pat and an eye for flash, the pink pants and shirt outfits, the carelessness of his swagger, the sneer around the edge of his smile. But it was Elvis's absolute commitment to his material that could not be denied. He was not so much singing the blues as living up to them. Born into a poor Southern family, he was a natural. What Elvis discovered was not his ability to imitate black blues singing, but the nerve to cross the borders he'd been raised to respect. Elvis moved back and forth from basic blues to mainstream, holding nothing back. Elvis was the rebel.
When I was trying to get to you.
It thrilled some and threatened others. In the country districts deep in the Bible Belt, Elvis's strange clothes and style of performing drew only polite applause from the State Farm families. But when he hit the bigger towns, the reaction would be entirely different. Elvis's sex appeal brought a lot of girls into the parking lots and fairgrounds. Others thought him provocative and lewd.
You have to put on a show in order to draw a crowd. If I just stood out there and sang and never moved a muscle, the people would say, oh, my goodness, I can stay home and listen to his record. But you have to give them a show.
Used to think that he was doing that to show off for the ladies, but really this was just Elvis. I think that's the feeling that he had. He loved to do it.
I think he's one of the greatest singers there ever was, regardless of his magnitude on stage or whatever. He had the talent to go with it, a huge talent.
What was it about him that made him so great, in your opinion?
Oh, just an electrifying artist, different style. He was good. And you're good. You never take a back seat to anybody, you know. And Elvis, he never had to take a back seat. When he walked out on stage, he demanded attention.
Elvis understood instinctively that his kind of music demanded action, and this set him apart from all other white musicians of the day. His body was as essential to the music as his voice or the instruments. Radio was the real foundation of Elvis's success. Radio broadcasts his records and performances to a large listening audience. After failing on the Grand Ole Opry, Elvis tried a rival radio program.
The Louisiana Hayride.
Elvis Presley, let's give him a nice hand. How you came about with that rhythm and blues style, that's all it is. That's all you can say.
Well, sir, to be honest with you, we just stumbled upon it. I mean,
You stumbled upon it. Well, you're mighty lucky, you know.
Thank you.
They've been looking for something new in the folk music field for a long time, and I think you've got it.
We hope so.
Elvis was a smash on the Hayride. Its audience was younger, and soon Elvis was appearing as a regular on the popular radio show. Elvis was what teenagers in the music industry had been waiting for. That also went for Colonel Tom Parker, a Nashville promoter who was always on the lookout for fresh talent. In Elvis, the Colonel found the consummate performer, sexy, ambitious, and extraordinarily talented. After becoming Elvis's manager, Parker convinced RCA Records to buy out his contract from Sam Phillips. Within 2 months, Elvis was in New York cutting his first national release. It skyrocketed to #1 on all charts, country, R&B, and pop.
Well, since my baby left me, well, I dwell. Well, it's down at the end of Lonely Street, that heartbreak hotel where I'll be just so lonely, baby. Well, I'm so lonely. I'll be just so lonely I could die.
2 weeks after recording Heartbreak Hotel, Elvis debuted on American television on the Dorsey Brothers stage show. Just 21 years old, this country boy from a shanty town in Mississippi was about to become a national sensation.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready. Now go, cat, go, but don't you.
The Ed Sullivan Show was yet to come. By April 1956, Elvis's career was in full flight. A dizzying schedule of studio recordings, more TV shows, screen tests in Hollywood, and a #1 album that topped the list, including My Fair Lady, Frank Sinatra, and Harry Belafonte. The critics hated Presley. One New York writer said, "He can't sing a lick, makes up for vocal shortcomings with the weirdest and plainly planned animation short of an Aborigines mating dance." Rock music, a relatively harmless and innocent enthusiasm, was condemned as obscene and criminal. Elvis and other rockers like Jerry Lee Lewis appear mild compared to the heavy metal and punk acts of today. But these pioneers of rock represented an image that could scare the hell out of parents and teachers. For teenagers in the 1950s, Elvis was their private property. Sensitive and vulnerable, yet menacing. No interfering adult could penetrate his mysteries. So when Elvis appeared on the Steve Allen TV show, it left many fans perplexed. To diffuse the critics, Allen dressed the rock and roll star in tie and tails and had him sing Hound Dog to a real basset hound. Elvis strutted off the stage to cheering applause. But his fans were furious at the way their hero had been treated. Allen tried to fit Elvis in the mold of the aging nightclub crooner. At the concert in Memphis's Rustwood Park 2 weeks later, Elvis gave the July 4th capacity crowd a celebration to remember. Game show host Wink Martindale recalls the day Elvis dropped by Dance Party to plug the upcoming benefit performance.
That afternoon at Channel 13, you just had the feeling that something was in the air, that this guy, who had already made a movie in Hollywood and was rising to new heights and was at that time was in a step-by-step battle, so to speak, with Pat Boone, if you'll remember, for popularity. He was on all the magazine covers then, and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. You just had the feeling. You didn't know what was happening, but the electricity, George, was incredible.
How about the big show at Rustwood Park scheduled for July 4th? Bob Johnson, surely I know, wants us to mention that, and we want to mention it. I believe the proceeds from this show go to the Cynthia Milk Fund. Is that right, Elvis?
Yes, sir, that's right. And I'd like to say let's see, what would I like to say? I'd like to say that we have a diamond ring that we're going to have as a door prize. It's my initial ring. I've had it for some time, and it has 14 diamonds in it. And we're going to give it away at the door as a door prize.
I see.
And everything.
And all the proceeds from this particular show, this is July 4th at Rustwood Park. Elvis is going to be there. He's going to sing and play. His band will be there. Many other stars will be there, too. And we will certainly want you to watch Bob Johnson's column in the Memphis Press Cemetery, watch all the publicity on it, and get your tickets in advance. Elvis Presley, I want to thank you again because we know you're a busy man, and thanks a lot for coming by and seeing us at the dance party and saying hello to all your friends here in Memphis and the Mid-South. And anytime you're in town and want to come by, we certainly will welcome you.
Well, thank you very much, Wink, and I'll see you again.
Okay, thanks a lot. Elvis Presley.
With the Steve Allen fiasco fresh in his mind, Elvis took to the stage and declared that tonight everyone would see the real Elvis. He gave away his initial ring to a lucky fan and put on a bona fide Presley performance.
You may go to school. You may have a pink Cadillac, but don't you be nobody's fool. Now, baby, come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, I want to play out with you. Well, listen, let me tell you, baby, what I'm talking about. Come on back to me, little girl, so we can play some house. Now, baby, come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, I want to play out with you. I want to play house, baby. I want to play hot. baby, well, I want you to know. Come on back and let's play a little house so we can act like we did before. Now, baby, come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, come. Come back, baby, I want to play out with you. Oh, play it again.
Here's Brian Britt, freshly back from Memphis.
That's right.
Mhm.
Had a great time down there. We went down on a Monday, came back on a Friday, and we spent 3 full days going to Sun Records, going to Graceland, visiting the jet planes across the street. And
Did you do any recording at Sun Records?
they wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't?
No, they have some standards there.
I thought you could do a little something.
Not even humming.
No?
Very, very small. Sun Records is probably no larger than this room.
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's larger than this room, I should say. It's a little
Nothing
larger
could
than
be
this.
smaller than this.
But it was recently taken over by some new people, but they've made a real attempt over the years to keep the original look. And they showed us the exact spot in the corner where Elvis sang that first song.
Did you feel a little of the magic when you?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it does.
it's quite a place. They run tours through there.
Mhm.
And they also now have decided they're going to make it an operating recording studio, and they have people who want to come in and record.
That'll be interesting.
We didn't go that far.
If the tour comes in while you're recording, that'll be.
Well, there's no possibility of recording while the tour's going through. It's one room.
Oh.
So they flick the sign down, recording session in progress, and you wait outside.
outside,
Yeah, in the heat. Very hot down there.
How about Graceland? What was that?
It's not quite as large as I thought it was. We
Mhm.
went by for the first time at night, and it's bathed in all these multicolored spotlights, and it's really quite impressive. This is a fence. It must be, 300 or 400 feet along the front of the property. And the next day as we drove up, your first impression is this is not as big as it should be maybe for the king.
Mhm.
It's not what I call a modest home. I'd be very happy there.
Mhm.
But as you go inside, the rooms are not all that large.
And how about the furnishings? Well, we'll see them, won't we?
Yeah, the furnishings are, not what I would have picked. And, not to put down Elvis's taste, I don't know of any, interior decorators who are falling all over each other trying to say they furnished the place. It was what he felt comfortable with. And,
Yeah. What happens when a poor boy grows up,
exactly.
gets rich? And
I mean, you couldn't say this room was French provincial and this was Italian provincial. It was kind of a melange there.
I hear you guys had quite a time getting in there too.
Yeah, they carefully control access to it. I can say with some pride that we were one of the few camera crews that was allowed inside Memphis.
Yeah, for years.
Inside Graceland.
Yeah, for years, all I've seen is the gate. People standing at the gate. So
That's
I'm,
right.
I'm excited to see the footage.
They do control access. If you're going on the tour, you drive up this long circular driveway, get out of the bus. There'll probably be 20, 25 people at a time. You'll have to wait because there's always a tour in progress. You go in, to the left, you see the dining room, not a large room again. To the right, the living room. And the highlight there is a giant grand piano, gold-plated, gold leaf. It was done by Priscilla. The piano was there originally, and on their first anniversary, she sent out the piano to have it, done in gold. It's very tasteful. You can't go upstairs. Elvis's aunt still lives there, believe it or not, a lady called Delta, and he had promised her many years ago that she'd always have a home.
And
So she's living around all these tours. So you can't go into the kitchen. I'd love to go into the kitchen. And you can't go upstairs. You can go downstairs. There are 2 rooms down there. There's a room that is all in yellow, as you'll see, and there are 3 TV sets. And they tell us that Elvis got that idea from a visit to the White House. He saw that the president had 3 television sets, and he figured, well, if the president of the United States can have that, the king of rock and roll can.
Probably watching all 3 networks.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Then we went into the pool room, which was another interesting part. So you're going to see all of that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We enjoyed it.
Elvis Presley, that seductive smile, those hips that horrified mothers but delighted daughters. They made Elvis a much talked about young man down south. Would the reaction be as extreme in the rest of America? There was one way to find out. Elvis signed his famous deal with Ed Sullivan. 3 short performances, $50,000. The opportunity was mind-boggling.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, for his second appearance of 3 appearances on our show tonight, Elvis Presley.
You ready? Set. Go, man.
If ever a performer and a medium were made for each other, it was Elvis and television. In the 1950s, TV was in its infancy, filling the living rooms of the nation with Lucille Ball, News of Maryland, and the rock and roll music sweeping the land. Television didn't quite know what to do with the hip-swinging, leg-lashing singer named Presley. Ed Sullivan tried shooting him from the waist up, cutting off the famous gyrations, but it only gave more thought to the imagination. The program provided an occasion for all of North America to tune in the phenomenon it had been hearing so much about for the past 9 months.
Rock and roll, baby, pour on the steam. Shuffle to the left, shuffle to the right, gonna rock and roll till the end. Ready to rock and roll.
Elvis's fame and position as the greatest show business sensation of the times had been firmly established. That Sunday night in '56, 83% of the viewing audience watched The Boy Who Dared to Rock. By the end of '56, Elvis was universally acclaimed the king of rock and roll. Nobody has ever made it so big so fast. Not Michael Jackson, Dylan, or Madonna. Even the Beatles, Elvis's closest rival, could match his breathtaking ascent to stardom.
This is a real, decent, fine boy. And wherever you go, Elvis.
How he did it is only part of the Presley legend. The other part begins in a two-room plankboard shack in East Tupelo, Mississippi. Brian Britt.
To say that Elvis Presley came from humble beginnings is to understate it. He was born in 1935 in this house built by his father, uncle, and grandfather. The total cost of the building materials, $180. The money was borrowed from a bank. But they were difficult times. The home was repossessed 3 years later. It's now a state historical monument. Inside the Presleys' home are the restored remnants of the family's life in the 1930s and 40s. It was in these rooms that Elvis dreamed of one day becoming a country and western singer. He chased down those dreams.
He dreamed dreams that only parents would believe. You know, Vernon said he used to tell me, Daddy, someday I'm going to buy you and Mama the biggest house that I can find. While most parents would think this was a far-fetched dream, I think they gave him hope. They believed with him, along with him, whether in depth or not, but they listened to his dream, and it evolved.
How early did he express that dream? How young would he have been?
Very early, like maybe 6 or 7 years old. Someday I'm going to grow up and I'm going to buy you the biggest house and the biggest car. He was a dreamer. And I think that's what I'll often say, that when he placed his bit of talent at that time, when he placed it in the hands of God, God touched that talent. And he magnified it in such a manner that the entire world knew this young man by his first name. But when he made a commitment, he kept it. If he told you he was going to do something, you could take it to the bank. But if he told you he wasn't, you could hang it up. That was it.
In 1948, Vernon moved his family to Memphis into a tenement building not far from Elvis's new high school. Many of the fans retracing the Elvis legend end up here at Humes High School in Memphis. Elvis was a member of the class of 1953.
I was the one who taught her to kiss the way where she kisses you now. And you know the way she touches your cheek. Well, I taught her how.
On display in the school today are many mementos of Elvis's 4 years at Hume's, including his report card from 1949. His grades were average. His lifelong interest in football began here, and his favorite class, naturally, music.
I taught her so well.
8th grade at Humes High School here in Memphis, we had a music class together. I'll never forget this as though it was yesterday. It was Christmas time, and in America, in the South, at Christmas time, in the music classes, they let you sing carols and have a little party or what have you. Well, Elvis asked the teacher if he could bring his guitar to class. Now, we're talking he's 12 years old, 13 years old. And Elvis brought his guitar to class, and he got up in front of the class, and he sang 2 country songs. And it just imprinted on my mind. I couldn't believe it. Here was a guy that could really sing and play guitar, and I was hating being in this music class because at that time it wasn't the thing to do. And I never forgot that. That was in the 8th grade. From then on, occasionally I'd see Elvis with his guitar at school. And I'll never forget the last year of high school, our senior class. I was president of the senior class. We had a senior class talent show. And the person that got the most applause got to do an encore. So in reality, that was the winner of the talent show. Well, a lot of people had kidded Elvis a little bit during the 10th and 11th grade in school. But the senior year, they kind of started taking him a little more seriously because they knew he was serious about it. And lo and behold, he won the talent show, and he got to come back and do an encore. And it was sort of the middle of the year. From then on in, he was sort of a little bit of a celebrity in the school.
After graduating from Hume's, Elvis remained close friends with George Klein, who went on to spin records as a Memphis disc jockey. Elvis frequently popped in on his old school chum's radio show for a surprise visit. Once listeners heard their idol's familiar baritone, the studios were flooded with female fans. In 1956, Elvis came to Canada, the only foreign country to host an Elvis tour.
We would go to a city, and we didn't think to have security set up, and we'd go to a hotel, and the disc jockeys would find out where we were. Like, I remember when we came to Canada, we played Toronto and Maple Leaf Gardens, went down to Ottawa, and then we went up then to Vancouver, and it was just unbelievable. The kids found out where we were, and they started, charging the hotel and calling the hotel and hollering and running up and down the halls, and we had no idea of security in those days because nothing like that had ever happened before.
He never did come to Montreal. Montrealers, of course, were very disappointed. What was the problem there?
Well, when Elvis played Toronto and Ottawa that time in 1957, 56, whenever the year was, I was with him there. And Montreal actually was on the schedule. And what happened was we got to Toronto, and we played that big football. Well, we played Maple Leaf Gardens, and it was, the fans just went crazy. And they charged the stage, and they didn't want to hurt Elvis. It was just fan reaction. And then we went down to Ottawa, and it got even scarier. In fact, I remember in Ottawa, it was so bad, we played a hockey arena, that we couldn't even go back to the hotel after the show. Colonel Parker said, look, the fans have found out where you're staying. You've got to leave town immediately right after the show. So right after the show, we jumped in Elvis's Cadillac and took off for the next city. We couldn't even go back we had to send somebody for our luggage. So Montreal, we heard, was even going to be wilder and crazier. And he didn't want to cause any riots. So consequently, Montreal was kind of scratched off the schedule.
By 1958, Presley had grossed an incredible $100 million. The business brains behind the one-man industry was Colonel Tom Parker. How the king of rock and roll and the master of promotion came together is legendary in American folklore. Parker, a combination of W.C. Fields and P.T. Barnum, was a hustler. He went from peddling hot dogs at carnivals to managing talents like Eddie Arnold and Canada's Hank Snow. Working the South with his traveling road shows, it was only natural at some point to run across the kid with the wiggle. Parker booked Elvis on several of his junkets, and in 1955 wooed Gladys and Vernon Presley's confidence in order to manage their son. Once that was done, he masterminded Presley's career. All contracts, publicity, Army service, RCA hits, TV shows, the movies, and everything after that. Under Parker's management, Elvis became more than a rock singer. He became an image.
I think Presley was a star from the first day he ever started going into show business. I think anyone could have helped him that knows something about show business. I think my experience and, in a small way, handling his future with making contracts where perhaps someone would offer certain amount of money, and I thought this artist was worth more, and I held out for my price. I've lost some deals, but I gained some others by waiting.
The Colonel was an old-style boss figure who worked his boy hard. Perhaps his greatest merchandising scheme was the grueling 7-year film contract Elvis signed in Hollywood.
And so the boy who'd been a sensation back home went on national TV and fired up all of America and left them screaming for more. He was just 21, but he had big fame, big money, and a recording contract with RCA Victor. What came next is part of every teenager's wildest fantasy. Hollywood came calling.
Most people remember Elvis's movie career as a series of formula films. Girls, cars, and plenty of music. In fact, during his early years in Hollywood, he made a few movies that showed off his potential as an actor.
Didn't you know he was crazy about your wife?
You're wrong, Mike. Yes, he liked Kathy once, but that ended years
What are
ago.
you lying to him for? We know better.
He carried her picture all through the war.
Said he was going to marry her as soon as he got home.
It's about time somebody opened your eyes, kid. He wanted her, and now he's run away with her.
And with our money.
They probably had it all figured out.
In movies like Love Me Tender and Loving You, Elvis projected that special something that made him a natural on the screen. Abe Lastfogel, then head of the William Morris Agency, said, "His screen test was one of the best I ever saw. Elvis was not only handsome, but he had a mobile, expressive face, able to mirror gaiety or tenderness, and sometimes an inscrutable, brooding quality."
Come on, let's get the money and get out of here.
Get away from him! Leave him alone!
Don't move just like that.
Kid, where's Vance? I gotta talk to him.
Right, Clint.
Vance, I didn't mean it.
I know you did, Clint. You don't have to tell me. Everything's gonna be all right.
It's gonna be all right.
Elvis arrived in Hollywood at the perfect time. Teen films were in vogue. Marlon Brando and James Dean personified the plight of modern disaffected youth in films like The Wild One and Rebel Without a Cause. Then tragedy struck. James Dean was killed in a car crash. Suddenly, there was room for another young man to fill the screen with his brooding, sexy presence. Elvis was it. He said his life's ambition was to be a movie actor, and particularly a good one. The role of Danny Fisher in King Creole, originally intended for James Dean, was given to Elvis. It's considered one of his best films. Critics thought he would win an Oscar for this role.
You'll excuse me. My mother's waiting up for me with a hot toddy.
Get out of here. You never had a... Sit down. What's with you, kid? You looking for trouble, too, huh?
Oh, I'm like the lady, just looking to get out of here.
Let me go with you.
Look, kid, get out of here and mind your own business, huh? Get up. Get up.
Don't,
baby.
please.
Leave her alone. Come on, get up.
Leave her alone. Come on.
Get out. Oh, boy. You're a pretty fancy performer, ain't you, kid?
Now you know what I'll do for an encore.
In his early movies, Elvis played the angry young man from the wrong side of the tracks. Though an underdog because of circumstances, his frustration and bitterness keep him down.
Sit down, Danny. Sit down, I said. Now, you've just been told that you're not graduating tomorrow. Doesn't that mean anything to you?
You said I'm not graduating. Okay, that's it. Now what do you want?
I once had a son, Danny. He lived 13 years. Some hoodlums jumped him one night and he died.
Well, I'm sorry, but what's that got to do with me?
Because you have all the earmarks of being a hoodlum. A hoodlum or a hustler, whatever you want to call it.
This isn't principal talk.
Well, the more difficult the student, the more I try to lean over backwards.
Listen, Mr. Evans, we moved into this neighborhood 3 years ago. In the 3 years that I've been going to school here, I've shined shoes and dusted people off at a barber shop. I've done towel duty in 4 different men's rooms. I've stacked chairs and bottles and swept the floor up of every joint on Bourbon Street. It's gotten so I look longer at a dame with clothes on than one without. I'm not a hoodlum. I am a hustler. I've had to be for a very simple reason. My old man. You see, sir, my mother was killed in an accident about 3 years ago. Well, after that, it might as well have gotten the old man, too, because he took himself right out of the lineup. He quit cold. He lost the drugstore he owned, he lost the house, and then finally what few little jobs he's had since. You know, maybe I could have liked school, Mr. Evans. But every time I wanted to play ball, I had to go to work. Somebody had to. The chorus girls will make them dance on my bed.
No, Vince, let's try it again. Vince!
How's your headache?
I'm getting all unglued. Someplace by accident.
You tell me where you think the accident will take place, and I'll make sure I'm there.
At first, music was not a major feature of Elvis's early films. It later became the most important element. The title song of Jailhouse Rock was only conceived as an afterthought, and the dance sequence inserted later. This
came, Elvis's popularity was really exploding. Elvis would report for duty, that was for sure. What was in doubt was, what would it do for his career? We'll be back after this.
Are they coming to get me? Is that it?
Elvis burst onto the music scene just as the world was ready for something different. He laid the base for a new sound. Others were building on it quickly. It seemed suicidal to drop out just as competition was heating up. But Elvis had little choice. In his Army days, Elvis would grow, but he would also suffer a deeply scarring loss.
By 1956, Elvis was a household name. With so much attention on the Presleys from Audubon Drive, Memphis, the need for privacy grew increasingly more obvious. As an international movie and recording star, Elvis could now buy his parents a big house. The Presleys moved into Graceland, a Tennessee-style mansion on 14 acres. To ensure his privacy, Elvis installed the famous front gates with the musical notes. But Elvis wasn't at Graceland very long before Uncle Sam found a new home for him, the barracks at Fort Hood, Texas. He was drafted into the U.S. Army in December 1957. His induction turned into a media event. Floodlights blazed, cameras rolled. Life magazine alone filed over 1,200 pictures, a rare opportunity to see the star at close range. Elvis took it all in good stride.
2, 3, 4, occupation GI Blue. From GI.
After training, Elvis's unit was shipped to Germany. While he was in the service, he didn't ask for any favors. He just wanted to be one of the boys.
Since you've been in the Army, have the boys given you kind of a rough time in the barracks because of your past career, would you say?
No, sir, I was very surprised. I've never met a better group of boys in my life. They probably would have
if it'd been like everybody thought, I mean, everybody thought I wouldn't have to work and I would be given special treatment and this and that. But when they looked around and saw I was on KP and I was pulling guard and everything just like they were, well, they figured, well, it's just like us.
One time we were in Grafenwehr on winter maneuvers, and then we were sleeping in like 3 foot of snow in our sleeping bags. And they came to us at that time and said, some colonel or something said, Mr. Presley, we're going to take you back to Miami to the disc jockey convention, and then we're going to bring you to Paris for the air show, and then we've arranged for you to meet the Pope. And Elvis went back to him. He said, gentlemen, so there's 15,000 men out there that are sleeping in the snow, and then for me to leave and go to a nice, warm, comfortable place, and then have to come back and work with those guys, he said, I couldn't face them. He said, I think I'll just stay here.
Have 2 years of sobering Army life changed your mind about rock and roll?
Sobering Army life. No, it hasn't. It hasn't changed my mind because I was in tanks for a long time, you see. And they rock and roll quite a bit.
In the Army, Elvis faced the most crucial emotional experience of his life, the death of his mother, Gladys Love Presley.
The death of his mother had a tremendous effect on Elvis. He loved his mother so very dearly, and he was actually, when he got Graceland, he said it's for my mom. When he would get his gold record, he said, Mom, this is for you. He loved his mother like a son, like you wouldn't believe the love between the mom and the son there. And when she passed away at such a young age, Elvis was devastated. It just almost destroyed him. He could not believe it because his career had just taken off. He had just become the superstar of the world, and he was becoming very extremely wealthy. He could buy his mom anything in the world she wanted. He could do anything for her. And he had just gone in the Army, which was sort of a depressing time for Elvis because here he's a big star, and all of a sudden he goes into the Army, and his mom died.
A lady-in-waiting medallion Minutes wearer was waiting for Elvis to get out of the Army. The ladies were kept waiting for 2 years. Then Elvis came home, and he headed to Hollywood.
The Fraulein's are pretty as flowers, but we can't make a pass. The Fraulein's are pretty as flowers, but we can't make a pass. Because they're all wearing signs saying, keep an ear off the grass. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, occupation GI Blues.
After serving in Germany for 2 years, Sergeant Presley kept his uniform on long enough to make GI Blues, giving his still adoring fans a movie version of his days as a soldier.
Go special, go, blow whistle blow. Frankfurt Special's got a special way to go.
I have a reputation.
Like his pre-service movies, GI Blues was a chance for Elvis to have a screen romance. This one with Juliette Prowse sizzled off-screen, too.
Oh, please. So many compliments will go to my head. Pretty, yeah?
Jawohl.
And it was a chance to cement his audience's love, showcase a few songs, and charm even a wooden puppet.
There's no strings along this love of mine. It was always you from the start. Sei mir gut, sei mir gut, sei mir wie du wirklich sollst. Wie du wirklich sollst, 'cause I don't have a word. Oh, ouch! Oh,
His popularity reconfirmed, Elvis made it known he was game for all kinds of roles. Next, he was given a part meant for Marlon Brando in Flaming Star, the promise Elvis showed in his early movies, Shone Again.
And you neither, for all I know.
Stop that.
But you saw him, arguing and stalling, all time almost dying, keeping us there more than an hour. It was just 5 minutes before we got here, she died. If we'd have gotten here just a little bit sooner, she may be alive now.
The angry young man was back again, and not once did he have to sing to get to the audience.
Please, Pacer. Drop it. Please.
The flaming star was the star of death, and the movie did not live long at the box office. Neither did Elvis's next film, Wild in the Country, another dramatic role.
You want me to leave?
Please.
As women wrung their hands and wished they had the chance Hope Lang had, the movie makers were wringing their hands over how to make more lucrative pictures. Elvis's next movie made it easy for them to decide.
First time I've worn it.
You want to know something? On you, wet is my favorite color.
What?
Oh, hello there. Where'd you come from? What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?
Can I play a shoe?
I think you're a little young for this game.
Once drama went up, bucks came rolling in. Blue Hawaii would end up being financially the biggest Elvis movie, and it sold millions of records of the movie's 14, count 'em, 14 songs. Every chance he had, and the producers made sure he had plenty of them, Elvis would sing.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with.
And everywhere he turned, there were pretty women.
Back to your room.
Too many sometimes.
Well, you sure can't sleep here. That perfume. You ought to take a bath. Second thought, you ought to take a cold shower.
Chad, I'm lonesome. I want someone to talk to.
Well, what about your roommates?
They're sleeping.
Well, that's where you should be. In bed.
I am in bed.
I got a
And
roof
in
over
the
my
background, there was a lot of lush
beautiful
travelogue scenery.
And a family.
Now, look, now let's get this over with. All the time I was overseas, I got a letter from my folks every week reminding me of my beautiful home and my beautiful future and my dad's beautiful pineapple business. And the more they reminded me, the more I knew I couldn't come back here with the rest of my life all laid out for me. No, Miley, it's too easy to fall into a ready-made setup.
But fall into a ready-made setup he did. After Blue Hawaii, an Elvis movie was, well, an Elvis movie. Panoramic, action-filled, packed with women and songs, but dismally lacking in plot. This movie poster summed up the producer's philosophy.
Going swimming in bikinis, walking on a wiggling by. Yeah. She rode a body, return to sender, address unknown, no such number, no such song.
And by '65, when Paradise Hawaiian Style was made, Elvis really looked tired of the set pattern, and he was gaining weight, while the movies lost even more originality.
All right, Lonnie, where is it?
Where's what?
The key.
How would I know?
This is no time for games. We can't stay any longer.
Okay, I'll make a deal with you.
I'm listening.
The movies in Elvis's lazy years sometimes only took 3 weeks to shoot. They sold a lot of tickets and gave a lot of starlets their big breaks. But for Elvis, who once dreamed of being a serious actor, enough became enough.
He got tired of the same type of motion pictures, the same formula pictures where I would say, Elvis, he would come home to Memphis, and I'd say, Elvis, what's your new movie about? He'd say, same story, different location, you know. He said, I beat up a guy, get the girl, and sing 10 songs, and that's it. He got tired of those movies. He had signed the contracts to do those movies, so he honored them. he told Colonel Parker, he said, when these contracts run out, I don't want to do any more of these type movies. I want to take time off from Hollywood, go back to the stage, go back to do what I enjoy most, which is singing on stage in person, which he did.
Shoot the Hollywood camera.
So after years of making mediocre movies, Elvis left Hollywood in 1968 and went home, back to Memphis. The town that had nurtured him in the early years of his success would bring him even more success. Here, he cut a much-loved album, From Elvis in Memphis. And for his 1968 Christmas special, Elvis recorded a concert with some of his old musical buddies. Most of that jam session never made it to air. We're thrilled to bring you the concert, rarely seen unedited. Here is One Night with You.
Well, good night.
It's been a long show. It's been a long show.
Long show.
Yeah, it's been nice. Oh, let's get it on.
See what I do now, folks. Okay. First of all, we'd like to thank you for coming out here tonight to the show. And this is supposed to be like an informal section of the show where we faint or do whatever we want to do, especially me.
We'll have to call a plumber.
We don't have our, what? We don't have our full band here tonight, but we'd like to give you an idea of how I started out about 14 years ago, and the sound that we had back then. And the guy over here on my left is the guy that played guitar for me when I first started out in 1912. When did I start out, man? 56. Show ahead. 1956.
I was just a little bitty kid, huh?
You're still a little bitty kid.
Just don't do it.
You got a big mouth. That is ugly. This is Scotty Moore, a guitar player. And this is my drummer. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana. I met him about 10 years ago. DJ Fontana. And,
this is going to be a good one, I know. What would you now?
We just sit here. That's it, man. The first thing that we recorded, the very first thing, was an old rhythm and blues type song. And if I fall asleep here, just give
One Night with You showed a personal side of Elvis. It was a poignant but triumphant return to his heady days of early stardom, singing classic hits with the boys, Scotty, DJ, Charles, and Alan. And it would be the beginning of the King's comeback. We'll be right back after this.
You're a good audience, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.